Because some songs don't just stay in the piano, they wait for new hands to play them. When my aunt passed away, I inherited her house on the edge of town. She had no children, no husband, just me, her only niece. Most relatives considered the place a burden, too far from the city, too old and crumbling to be worth the upkeep. But I didn't have much choice. The house greeted me with silence that first day. Not the quiet of an empty home, but the heavy, listening kind, as though every floorboard and rafter leaned in to hear me breathe. The air smelled faintly of polish, old paper, and something sweeter beneath it, like dried roses left too long in a vase. Every room was cluttered with antiques, heavy furniture that sagged with dust. The walls groaned and clicked, the kind of settling that feels almost vocal. At night, when the house cooled, the timbers let out low moans that made it sound as though someone were muttering just out of reach. But the centerpiece of it all, the thing I couldn't ignore, was the piano in the parlor. It dominated the room like a coffin standing on legs. Carved from black walnut, its varnish absorbed the light, swallowing shadows whole. The keys were stained the color of old teeth, a few chipped as though bitten. I couldn't remember ever hearing it played when I was young, though I spent summers here. My aunt never touched it, yet I remembered her hands always polishing it carefully, wiping dust from the keys with slow, deliberate strokes, as if she were tending to something alive. I didn't think much of it at first. It was just furniture, after all. Until the nights came. The first time I heard it, I was lying in bed. The house had finally gone still, every board and pipe settling into silence. And then, from down the hall, came a note. A single, low tone that lingered too long, trembling through the walls. I froze. My heart thudded against my ribs. No one else lived here. The front door was locked. The windows were latched. Before I could move, it came again. 2 notes this time, hesitant, almost testing, like a child pressing keys to see what sound they made. I sat up, straining to listen. The silence that followed was worse. I told myself it had to be the house, the sound of wood shifting, strings inside the piano tightening in the night air. It was old, after all. Things like that happen. But the next night, it returned. Not random. Not accidental. The keys pressed down in order, rising and falling in a halting rhythm. A pattern. A tune trying to form. By the third night, there was no denying it. The notes flowed with purpose, one after the other, carrying a melody that crawled under my skin with dreadful familiarity. It was the lullaby my aunt used to hum when I was a child. Only she had never played it on the piano. And I had never told anyone she sang it to me at all. By the third night I'd had enough. Logic demanded proof. So I crept downstairs just past midnight, my phone clutched in my hand, its little red light already blinking. The parlor was drowned in moonlight. Shadows spilled across the carpet, and the piano stood waiting, its lid lifted as though it had been expecting me. The keys gleamed faintly, pale against the dark wood, like teeth in an open jaw. I stood there, breath caught in my throat, the silence pressing against my ears. Nothing moved. Nothing stirred. Just the hollow stillness of an old house holding its breath. And then, one key sank. Slowly. Deliberately. The note boomed low and guttural, vibrating through the air until it rattled my bones. My hand trembled around the phone. I whispered aloud, as if to reassure myself, it's stuck. Just a mechanical fault. Old wood. Nothing more. But then another key pressed down. And another. Not random this time. Not accidental. The lullaby spilled from the piano, faster, sharper, each note crashing against the walls until the floor seemed to tremble. I should have run. I should have slammed the door. But I stood frozen, eyes glued to the black polished panel above the keys. And that's when I saw them. Hands. Thin, pale hands reflected on the glossy surface, moving with impossible speed across the keys, hands that didn't belong to me, didn't belong to anyone sitting there. Because the bench in front of the piano was empty. The reflection twitched, and for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw a face lift up in the panel, gaunt, familiar, smiling. The lullaby ended on a shattering chord, a sound like glass splintering, and the silence that followed felt worse than the noise. After that night, I sealed the parlor. I locked the door. I even shoved a chair beneath the handle, as though wood and metal could keep out whatever had taken root in that room. But it didn't matter. The lullaby followed me. It slipped into the mundane rhythms of the house, seeping into the fabric of my life. When I washed dishes, the drip of the faucet began to fall in perfect rhythm with its melody. When I lay in bed, the thump of my heartbeat fell into time with its tune, each pulse a note in the song. It was inside me. Days blurred together. I ate little. I barely slept. When I closed my eyes, I dreamed of keys pressing down, endless rows of them, stretching away into the dark, all playing the same song over and over. And then, one evening, I woke from one of those half-dreams to find myself in the parlor. I don't remember unlocking the door. I don't remember walking in. But there I was, seated at the piano. My hands rested on the keys, pale in the moonlight, and for a moment, I thought they weren't mine at all. "I don't play," I whispered. "I've never played." But my fingers pressed down anyway. And then they moved. Smooth, precise, fluid, sliding over the ivory like dancers guided by strings. My muscles ached, pulling against movements I couldn't control. The melody poured out, flawless, effortless, as though I had practiced for years. The lullaby filled the house, rising and falling in a tide that swallowed every other sound. This time, the piano wasn't playing itself. This time, it was using me. I tried to stop. God knows I tried. But my body betrayed me. My wrists locked in place, my fingers snapping down onto the keys with brutal force, striking them harder than I ever could. The joint screamed, tendons pulling like wires about to tear. My own strength was nothing against it, something else had burrowed in, wearing me like a glove. The melody twisted. The gentle lullaby warped into something jagged, dissonant, an imitation gone wrong. Each note felt sharp enough to cut the air, vibrating through my bones until my teeth rattled. I screamed. I begged. But my voice was drowned beneath the crashing chords, as if the piano swallowed the sound and fed it back into the music. And then I saw her. In the polished blackwood above the keys, my reflection had vanished. In its place was another figure, gaunt, pale, with eyes like hollow sockets. My aunt. She leaned close in the reflection, her hands guiding mine. I felt the press of phantom fingers over my own, curling them tighter against the keys, forcing speed, precision, fury. Her lips did not move. But her smile grew wider, stretching inhumanly, splitting until it looked carved into her face. And for the first time in years, I remembered something she whispered to me when I was a child, after one of those sleepless nights she spent humming that cursed lullaby. "One day, you'll play for me." I don't remember collapsing, but I woke hours later slumped forward over the keys. My face had pressed into them so long that red lines ran across my cheek. My hands, oh God, my hands. The skin was raw at the tips, the nails cracked, every joint swollen and bruised, as if I had played without stopping for hours, days. The silence in the parlor was unbearable. And then, the piano spoke back. One key depressed by itself, sharp and mocking, the sound cutting through the still air like a blade. The note hung there, and in it I heard her whisper, soft but triumphant. Perfect. Just as I wanted. That night, I dreamed. Or maybe I didn't. The lullaby wove through my mind, note by note, dragging me down into its rhythm. But this time, I wasn't lying small and comforted beneath it. I wasn't being soothed. I was playing. And I couldn't stop. The song repeated endlessly, my hands pounding, skin tearing, bones cracking, while she stood behind me in the dream, her withered hands resting lightly on my shoulders. Each time I faltered, she leaned down, whispering in my ear. Again. When I woke, my hands were still moving. Not fully. Just faint twitches, restless spasms, each finger tapping out silent notes against the blanket. As though practicing keys that weren't there. As though waiting for the piano. The neighbors talk. They say the piano sings every night now, its music spilling into the quiet street long after midnight. Some call it beautiful, haunting. Others close their shutters and mutter prayers, because the songs never stop once they begin. They whisper that the niece inherited her aunt's talent, that grief must have unlocked something inside her. They don't question how she learned so quickly, or why the same melody repeats without falter. They don't wonder why the curtains are always drawn, even though a dim glow burns in the parlor until dawn. But they notice. They notice she never waves from the window anymore. They notice her silhouette sways stiffly, her head bent at an unnatural angle as her hands race across the keys. They notice her movements are too precise, too mechanical, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. What they don't see is me. Because I'm not the one sitting at the bench. I haven't been for a long time. I'm inside the piano now, no, not even that. I'm inside the black gloss above the keys, staring out at the world like a prisoner behind glass. When the music begins, I see my body playing, my hands moving with skill they never had, guided by her will. And beside me, in this mirror prison, she stands. My aunt. Her smile never fades. Her eyes never blink. She hums as she plays with my body, her tune vibrating through the marrow of my soul, binding me tighter with each note. I try to scream, to pound against the surface, but all I can do is watch. Watch as the music spills out into the night. Watch as my body bends and jerks with the song. Watch as her reflection overlays mine until I can no longer tell where she ends and I begin. The neighbors think it's beautiful. But I know the truth. The lullaby will never stop. Not while she has me. Not while the piano waits for another. Because some songs are not meant to be heard. They are meant to be lived, played endlessly, until the body breaks, and a new one must take its place. And I can feel it, even now. She's practicing through me. Preparing. Perfecting. For her next pianist.